Welcome to our hen house. This is Jasmine Singer.
And this is Marianne Sullivan.
And we're so excited that you're with us for this week's show. Marianne's guest this week will be Kristin Stilt, who runs the Animal Law and Policy Program at Harvard Law School. She's working on a book about animals and Islam, two areas of law that she knows a lot about. And she and Marianne will be discussing some of the fascinating research that she's done so far. I'm really looking forward to hearing this because it's
a really interesting interview.
It's different than a lot of the types of interviews we've given in the past. And also, you'll be here later with rising anxieties, which I'm also very much looking forward to this week.
We're going to have bonus content for this week, and it's going to be, it's so exciting. It's you and me.
Wow.
What could be better?
We're
going to be
discussing
not our resolutions for 2019, because as you know, or maybe you know if you listen to the podcast, I hate resolutions. The minute I hear the word resolution, I want to not do it. So I don't use that word, but our non-resolutions for 2019, and each of us have 19, and we'll be discussing some of them. And if you're a member of the flock, you'll get the email the Tuesday after the podcast goes up with the link. Or you can find that link on the Flock Facebook page. If you're not a member of the Flock, you can, of course, join for $10 a month at ourhenhouse.org/donate.
Well, and also if you're a member of the Flock, I want to know your 19 for 19. So on the Flock Facebook page, we'll have a little discussion about that. So get prepared. And don't forget to support our sponsors. We curate all of our sponsors, so you can bet that if they are on the podcast, we like them, we use them, we believe in them, and we want you to use them too.
Before we get to the interview, since we've been talking about podcasts a lot on the podcast, it's all podcasts. It's
very meta.
All the time. It is very meta. I just wanted to talk about a little bit about podcast activism and a little bit about something that I did that I was kind of pleased about. And it's about this podcast, which I seem to be, it's not like I'm obsessed with this podcast, but it just seems to have come up a lot of late. Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. And all right, so I was way behind where, you know, I started at the beginning and they kept recording. So I hadn't heard all of the podcasts that had already been recorded. But at some point last October, I wrote to them, and one of the hosts had mentioned that she was vegetarian, and there was some discussion of animals, and animals come up to some extent in the Harry Potter books, not in any particularly good way. So I don't know what got into me. I just took it upon myself to write and talk about the importance of being vegan and how I felt that, you know, they take a very spiritual approach to the, not religious, but spiritual approach to these books, and very thoughtful commentary. They're at Harvard Divinity School. And I just said that I thought that, like, in order to comport with the spirit of the podcast. She had specifically referenced animals and how much she cared about animals. And I said, I don't know whether you're vegan or not, but I hope you are. And blah, 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 blah. I don't know exactly what I said, but it was apparently good. Because I kept listening to the podcast, and I finally got to the episode that would have come out the day after I sent that email. I mean, it was a long time later that I listened to it because I was listening to them in order. And so she didn't mention my letter. Don't get overexcited. But
okay, I'll hold myself back.
She was talking about something, and she said, and I should really be vegan. And then the co-host said, yeah, I should be vegan too. And then she said, which was the disappointing part, oh, but I love pizza so much, which was really annoying. But still, like, I thought, all right, this isn't a huge podcast, but it's not a nothing burger podcast either. And I thought, well, I actually got feedback on my little tiny bit of activism that always feels so good. And it made me feel like I should do this more often. Whenever, you know, there's any kind of, I think podcasts are a particularly good opening. Whenever there's any kind of mention, anything that opens for a discussion of why one should be vegan, I you know, it's so easy to send off it. Well, that's the question.
What?
This was an email, because they're not that big. And, you know, they did say at one point that they read all their emails. when it's a really big podcast, I don't know, do you send them an email? Do you tweet at them?
I think Twitter. I mean, like, it's funny because when I'm the digital director for Veg News now, I had been the senior editor. And when I was the senior editor, I was in the office, and I was very influenced by the food culture, and also the fact that I was around like people in their early 20s a lot. And so Instagram was it. And Veg News still has a great Twitter account, but it was not handled by us. It was handled by like one of our freelance editors who's amazing. And anyway, since I've been working from home and doing all of that freelance and also heading up the social media for the Pollination Project, I am kind of relearning Twitter, which I know seems very antiquated at this point, but it is clear to me that any media personality is mainly existing on Twitter. And so it's funny that we're having this conversation, because literally in the process of you having it, I heard back on Twitter. I mean, I didn't hear back. I got like a love from a tweet that I had sent a podcaster this morning for the Happiness Project with Gretchen Rubin and Elizabeth Kraft, her sister. And so Elizabeth had liked one of my tweets, which isn't a response. But the point is, she saw it and read it. And when you're dealing with like a super famous person, they probably aren't going to. So I do think Twitter is the way to go.
Yeah, well, that's good for me, because as I have mentioned, I'm really off social media. I am getting better. I've been back on Facebook, and I'm really, I just needed some time off, I think. But Twitter is definitely the only one I'm on regularly. Instagram, as we all know, since I have no visual talent, is a little beyond me. But and I don't know how you would respond to something like that on Instagram. You'd have to. It's not exactly the right milieu. Yeah, but I think Twitter works.
It doesn't work.
But an email, I mean, I think if you can get a good email address, I think that's a good way to go too. Even if they don't read it, maybe somebody will.
Yeah, we go through all of our emails. I mean,
but we're not of course. I think if it's a smaller podcast and not, it doesn't have to be that small. I think it should definitely be email. Or either email or Twitter, but I think that email is fine in that sense. But when it's a bigger podcast, I think, it's less likely that they'll read all their emails.
Yeah. Well, I have so many emails. That's why I had actually tweeted at Elizabeth Kraft. I have over 147,000 in my inbox.